But about a year ago, Yahoo was effectively forced by the security services in the United States to create, build, and install a backdoor system to email operation. And Yahoo was very, very heavily criticized for that. So what they did in America, they actually forced the operators to create backdoor system to their own operation. And I think what is happening here is the government is attempting to force telecommunication operators to build in a facility that will enable interception in favor of, as the government put it, in favor of security at the expense of freedom of speech. The government is criticized for doing that, but I think this is a better system than doing things via sort of the back door. So interception is taking place. There's no secret that interception is taking place, and website operators and telecommunication operators are intercepting whenever required and whenever they are issued by a warrant the customer's data. Just I think the attempt to legislate for it and to almost formalize something that is already happening just in a different way seem to upset people. The interception exists. It's just a matter of putting things into formality, which in a way is better, because once you put things into formality, you can start, hopefully, overview, oversee, advise, have some level of judicial scrutiny maybe over the whenever there are reports that terrorist activity has been stopped due to interception, then people are quite happy with that. Nobody's asking too many questions about the interception. But once you put things into more of a formal structure, I think this is where people are starting to get worried about the big state and all the rest of it. In a way, the mass surveillance actually results in less interference with one's privacy, because there's so much data out there. So who's going to be interested in, Peter, come on, looking into your emails, The operators will actually have to ensure that they have the capability of mass interception. So when faced with a warrant, they won't be able to say, well, we all remember Apple iPhone case, where Apple said, look, we're not prepared to help you with that. So they will actually be forced to build in that sort of system that will enable them to carry out interception. They must have the system in place to enable, and it must be tested, and it must be operative, so it must be there, so they won't be able to say, well, we haven't got the capability. How is the data being transmitted? Vast majority of data will be transmitted via, say, broadband, and that inevitably will touch on that as well. But again, it is not very clear how this is going to work, because you have individual companies such as Yahoo or Google or Apple, and then on top of that you have the internet service providers that facilitate the actual communication via broadband. So it is not very clear who's responsible for what. But I know from our own experience here, we have made applications previously for information that we assumed operators, such as without pointing out to any specific operators, such as Virgin Media or BT Internet, we assumed they would be having the capability of storing, and they didn't. Now, in our cases, it wasn't about, in the cases that we applied to the court for terrorism purposes, but it was for privacy purposes. But the point is that they didn't actually have the capability to assist. And I think that this is where what the government want to avoid is that whenever there is a real need for that information, they want to make sure that the operators are ready to provide it. The argument is someone must have the keys. Similar way that Bitcoin works. You're going to have different transactions being put together into one transaction to the degree that you cannot identify any individual transaction. So you cannot relate any individual transaction to a particular individual. It's all being kind of bundled up together. So I think in terms of data, this is what is happening. It's all being put into something like, to a format that cannot easily be read. To have a specific key, you need to have a specific code to know how to convert the data into language, into text, into something people can see and understand. The same example of someone has got to have the key. So there is a code, and someone has got to have the code and pass on the code to somebody else. And the way encryption works is that the code will go through, just try to simplify, the code will go through a number of stages until it converts itself into the actual code that will open the safe. Right? So it's not just saying, look, the code is ABCD123. The ABCD123 will eventually convert itself into a different code which will open the safe. So that's the idea. So I think that unencrypting is certainly something which is viable, and it will has to it has to happen, and the government has got the power to force companies to do that. Of course, there are concerns, but imagine a real bank on the high street where the police know that inside a safe there are I don't know, guns or ammunition or whatever it is that is intended to be used for terrorism. Would the bank provide a code to open the safe, and if the police presented the bank with the appropriate warrant? The answer is obviously yes. So the safe here is a virtual safe, and the code is an encrypted code. So the only difference is that one is happening offline, the other one is happening online. We're going back to good old-fashioned, or maybe not profiling. So it's about looking for something very specific, identifying, narrowing it down to the type of information that you are after. Otherwise, you will never have enough resources. Huge amount of information. I think it's going to boil down, to going back to basics and to profiling. But again, it's just from profiling someone saying, look, you're white Caucasian with a beard, and European, whatever it is, it's going to be more of a virtual profiling of certain type of communication, certain type of language being used, going via particular servers, rather than pointing out to specific features of one's face. This is what profiling is. If you go through, if during the summertime you have 10 million people going through the airport, how is it possible to identify one individual who might be planning to carry out an attack? So it takes hours and hours of profiling, of sorting or categorizing, mathematical formulas, what have you, a lot of intelligence, because it is just impossible to approach 10 million people and search through and you need to know more or less what you're looking for, I suppose, and where you're looking for it. I came across an article only a couple of weeks ago. There was a meeting of European heads of states where one of my colleagues in America sent this to me and asked for my comment. I think this is pretty much in line with what the Europeans are up to anyway.
Okay.
It's security, tighten up surveillance of the internet and telecommunications. So I think it's pretty much in line with European wishes. I think it is a matter of balancing public's wishes versus some sort of utopian, idealism. Public, I think if you ask the general public what sort of the priorities are, I bet the vast majority of people, at least in this country, will say it's security comes before privacy. And many people will say, look, I understand there is a need for interception, a need for some sort of compromise over my privacy. And most people don't think these things are private anyway. I just had a conversation with a couple of accountants earlier today, and they, one of them said to me, we don't use WhatsApp anymore. I said, why is that? So, it's not safe anymore. We don't feel this. The ones who are most concerned about the issues of privacy, which are of course legitimate concerns, are the ones who might have got vested interest in enhancing privacy, but then you have the rest of the people who have an interest in enhancing security. and you're always going to have this conflict. And I think now people feeling less secure, and most people are willing to compromise. It's never going to be. You're always going to have this conflict with government interfering with individuals' activities and secrets and what have you. Versus people saying, look, I want to do whatever I want to do that, and I want to remain anonymous. I want to live in nearly a lawless land where no one can identify me or attribute specific actions to me. That's on the other extreme. So I think it's going to balance itself out eventually, but probably in favor of security at the expense of privacy. We do cases here where we go after VPN services in order to help us identify certain individuals. So I personally believe in following the money. So somebody's got to pay. There are a number of services that are free. There are only a few services that are free, and they don't offer the full package. And even with the free services, we can identify an email address for someone who signed up for the service, and then we can identify IP addresses from where they logged into the service, and there's all sorts of other information that we can find out about a person, even if they try to mask their own identity. I mean, you have, of course, Tor. We use Tor browsers here, which mask you. With a Tor browser, you click a button and you are in Brazil. At least you are shown that you're in Brazil. You click it again, you are in Austria. And the IP address, just change your IP address whenever you want, and your perceived location whenever you want. So it's a tricky one. We use here masking software in Tor browser for we believe good reasons, because we do a lot of investigations, and we deal with all sorts of unsavory individuals and organizations and website operators and all sorts of people that we don't wish our IP address to be tracked back. Yeah, for protection, for the protection of the integrity of the investigations we carry out. So here is an example of what I believe is a legitimate reason to use it. Now and then you ask, why not everyone use that?
Yeah.
Why use Tor browser and not Google? In normal Google sort of Chrome or something. Yeah. Is because it is easier to use a browser which can identify you. And it is easier to use a browser which gives you the autocomplete and autocorrect and filled in your passwords automatically and does all this and remember your shopping habits and remember the website you visited. We know that there is a huge element of surveillance in that by Google and the other internet service providers. They are recording every website we're going into. They're recording our passwords, they're recording our usernames, and they're auto-completing it for us, they're auto-completing our searches. But you know what? We're quite happy with that. This is why most people, are carrying on using just usual, normal browsers to search the internet. Well, if you use a Tor browser, it is slow and it doesn't remember anything. It doesn't leave any, footprints. So it's inconvenient. So I think that's the point that I think the vast majority of people here, at least in this country, they don't mind being spied on, really.